My best friend Emily Thompson stole all my creative work from the past 10 years. My fiancé not only did not seek justice for me, but instead, he dressed up to attend her award ceremony. In my anger, I smashed my best friend's art exhibition. As a result, my fiancé sent me to a psychiatric hospital when I felt desperate, my best friend's brother. Also, my attending physician, Ethan Thompson, stepped forward. He told me he had secretly loved me for many years and promised to help me seek justice. I took him as my only hope. I entrusted all my feelings and trust to him until the second year of our marriage. I accidentally saw his chat history with friends. A friend asked him, "Is it really worth it to go this far for that non-blood-related sister?" He replied, "I believe Emily is innocent, only by hypnotizing Grace to forget those false memories. Only by using hypnosis can Grace forget those false memories. She won't bother Emily anymore." I finally realized he didn't marry me to save me. His true intention was to ensure that Emily Thompson would live a peaceful life. "Grace, I'll count to 3. Then you will be able to wake up." I open my eyes. I see Ethan Thompson in a white coat, smiling gently at me. We have been married for 2 years. Ethan Thompson hypnotizes me once a week. He says it's to help relieve my anxiety. I never expected that all of this was a carefully designed scheme by him. "I want to drink coffee. Can you help me buy a cup?" I smile in response, just like usual, pretending to know nothing. Ethan Thompson said, "Of course." Then he got up and left the office. I immediately sat down at his computer. I opened an encrypted folder named Evidence. I entered Emily Thompson's birthday in the password field. The folder opened successfully. I saw the contents inside. I was stunned for a moment. All I can hear is my own rapid breathing. There are only photos of Emily Thompson inside. There are as many as 100. There are also chat records between her and Ethan Thompson. In the most recent chat, Emily Thompson asked Ethan Thompson, "You helped me so much. Are you not afraid Grace will find out?" Ethan Thompson replied, "Your reputation is more important than anything. As for what I owe Grace, I will find a way to make up for it later." Emily Thompson then asked, "Ethan, do you really love her?" Ethan Thompson was silent for a long time. Then he replied, "If it weren't for fate's mockery, the one who should be standing by my side is you, Grace. She is just an accident." I feel a chill all over my body. I forced myself to suppress the nausea and closed the folder. It turns out that the so-called evidence he mentioned is just a record of his improper thoughts about Emily Thompson over the years. The trust he speaks of is actually just to better control me. I quickly uploaded the files in the folder to the cloud. I sat back in my original position before Ethan Thompson returned. Ethan Thompson returned to the consultation room with coffee. He noticed my pale face. He quickly touched my forehead. He said, "Grace, did you not sleep well last night? Let me take you home to rest." I nodded. I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to create tension with Ethan Thompson because there were more important matters waiting for me to handle. After Ethan Thompson took me home, he suddenly said there was an emergency with a patient. He had to go back immediately. He gently kissed my hair. He said apologetically, "I'm sorry. The patient's condition suddenly worsened. I'm his attending physician. I can't just leave him. What do you want to eat tonight?" "I'll bring it back for you, dear." I casually mentioned a char siu rice place over 20 kilometers from the hospital. Unexpectedly, Ethan Thompson immediately said, "Sure, as long as Grace wants to eat. No matter how far, I'll go buy it for you." I didn't wait for the char siu rice. Instead, I stumbled upon Emily Thompson's moments. She posted an update. "Finally finished the drawing, going out to relax a bit." In the photo, Emily Thompson is sitting in a dimly lit KTV room. A man's hand is vaguely visible beside her. The watch on that wrist, I'm very familiar with it. That's the birthday gift I gave to Ethan Thompson. For 2 years, he hasn't taken it off. At that moment, a WeChat message from Ethan Thompson came in. "Grace, the char siu rice is sold out. How about I order takeout for you?" I replied, "No need." In that moment, a message popped up on the screen. "Grace, your application for identity reshaping service has been approved. Please bring valid identification to the office tomorrow morning to complete the registration process." I smiled helplessly. Since Ethan Thompson has done so much for Emily Thompson, then I will completely leave according to his wishes and no longer bring them any trouble. The next morning, I went to the Wangshuan office. A formally dressed staff member handed me a document. He asked, "Grace, have you really decided to start over? To live with a new identity?" I nodded immediately. "I'm sure. However, Our office's investigation shows you were admitted to the New York Art Academy with top marks back then. You have great talent in painting, and your married life is very happy. Your husband is a very impressive psychologist, and he is quite handsome. He has also spent a lot of money on you at auctions. The new identity we have prepared for you may not be as good as the current one. I answered easily. It's okay. The deep affection Ethan Thompson gave me is actually just a dream, only I am clear about it. Behind the dream is a scene of devastation. Thinking of this, I seriously signed my name on the document. I walked out of the office. I took a taxi to the Thompsons' house. At the family banquet of the Thompsons, I attended with Ethan Thompson. The old house was filled with laughter and joy. Emily Thompson was surrounded by everyone. Everyone expressed their concern for her. Back in the day, Emily Thompson became famous thanks to my work. She remained popular in the art world ever since. Over the years, she successfully entered high society. The Thompson relatives all vied to please her. I stepped forward. I saw Ethan Thompson and my former fiancé, Jacob Williams, standing on either side of her. They usually carry themselves with an air of superiority. But at this moment, in their eyes looking at Emily Thompson, there was obviously a hint of affection. When they saw that I had arrived, Ethan Thompson concealed the light in his eyes. He came over and took my hand. He said, "Grace, you finally made it. Emily said she misses you." I forced a smile. I made an excuse to go to the bathroom. I turned to leave. The Thompsons immediately started discussing. "Ethan, your wife is really quite rude. Doesn't she even know to greet your sister? I warned you a long time ago. Don't marry that woman who has been to a mental hospital, but you wouldn't listen. I heard she has always been jealous of Emily's talent. A mentally unstable person actually dreams of becoming an artist." Emily Thompson quickly came out to mediate. "Let's let the past go. Ethan is my brother. His happiness is more important than anything." I walked out of the bathroom. I saw Ethan Thompson waiting at the door. He gently touched my hair. He comforted me not to take it too seriously. "It doesn't matter what they say. What matters is that I love you." I dodged his hand. I asked, "Ethan Thompson, do you really think I'm not crazy?" Ethan Thompson was momentarily taken aback. He answered immediately, "Of course I believe you, but Emily, my sister has a lot of fans now. If you directly accuse her, it could actually be detrimental to you." Ethan Thompson's gaze was determined. His expression was very sincere. I have been deceived by his excellent performances before. This time I planned to finish the act with him. I looked into Ethan's eyes and said meaningfully, "Ethan, thank you. Everything you do, I will remember in my heart." Ethan Thompson held me in his arms and said softly, "Grace, you believe me. I will definitely get to the bottom of this and give you a fair outcome." Before dinner, Ethan Thompson and Emily Thompson suddenly disappeared. Mr. Thompson asked me to find Ethan Thompson. I agreed and went upstairs alone. In the storage room at the end of the corridor, the door is slightly ajar. Voices from two people can be heard inside. "Grace hasn't been giving you a hard time lately, has she?" "No, she hasn't. Thanks to you always taking care of her feelings. My career has been going so smoothly. That's what I should do. After all, those paintings are your hard work. I can't let Grace take away the honor that belongs to you." Emily Thompson pretended to be concerned and said, "Grace is also quite pitiful. Ever since she was abandoned by Jacob Williams, her mental state has not been very good. If you truly like her, you must take good care of her." I turned pale. My fingers tightly clenched into my palm. At that time, I was sent to a mental hospital by Jacob Williams, all alone and helpless. It was then that I met Ethan Thompson. He promised to be my attending physician, to help me prove my innocence. I believed him. All my hopes were placed on him. In the end, I ended up with nothing. I didn't go to dinner. I walked alone to the terrace to get some fresh air. The Thompson family found out I was missing. They didn't send anyone to look for me either. After dinner, Emily Thompson appeared before me as usual. She put away the false expression from the day, with a hint of a cold smile at the corner of her mouth. She asked me, "Are you still hating me for that?" I didn't look at her. Emily Thompson smiled even more obviously. "Back then, you couldn't find any evidence no matter how hard you tried. Now, it's even more impossible. Who would believe the words of a madman, Grace? Don't think about it anymore. The most outstanding painter in America can only be me. No one else." Looking at Emily Thompson in an almost uncontrollable state, I only felt it was very ironic in my heart. I used to learn painting with Emily Thompson. She wasn't very good at it. I would spend my spare time helping her practice on my birthday. She even specially ordered a banner. it said. Happy birthday to the genius painter Grace. I originally thought we could always be good friends who understood and cherished each other, but who would have thought, in the end, we became irreconcilable foes. I no longer pretended not to see or hear. I turned around directly, stared at her. Emily Thompson, you know best in your heart about the achievements you've made today. The honors gained through plagiarism, though they may bring temporary glory, they cannot last long. One day, you will pay the price for your actions. Emily Thompson, hearing me say this, couldn't help but chuckle. She tilted her head with an unabashed smile on her face, her voice drawn out. That's right. I did plagiarize. I just copied it. What can you do to me? Your artwork and your fiancé, these things originally belonged to you. Now they all belong to me. I have everything, and you can only watch helplessly, powerless. There is not a hint of disturbance on my face. That's right. She took my painting and took away Jacob Williams, also snatched Ethan Thompson, the current Grace. There's nothing left to lose. I'm just thinking. A sound of footsteps comes from behind. Before I can turn around, Emily Thompson seems to be well prepared, suddenly takes a big step back, shouts in panic, Grace, don't come over. After saying that, she sways and rolls down the steps when Ethan Thompson arrives. Emily Thompson is already lying on the ground. Her face is pale. The previous arrogance is completely gone, like a little white flower that will scatter with a gentle blow. Ethan Thompson walked over quickly. He picked up Emily Thompson in one motion. He pried open Emily Thompson's hand. He discovered her palm was cut by sharp stones. Blood kept flowing. He immediately turned and glared at me. Grace, are you crazy? What did Emily do to you? Why are you treating her like this? I didn't push her. She did it to herself. Enough. I saw everything. Ethan Thompson frowned. I said it. I will get to the bottom of this. Why do you have to keep holding on? Emily Thompson listened. A hint of smugness appeared on her face. She pretended to cry pitifully. Ethan, my hand. Don't worry. I will bandage it for you right away. The commotion quickly attracted others. Jacob Williams walked at the front, ignoring the gazes of those around. He raised his hand and slapped me hard. Grace, what gives you the right to lay hands on Emily? The man's gaze turned cold. Those eyes that once looked at me gently now seemed to be covered by a layer of frost. The people around couldn't help but sigh. What an unreasonable person. In the past, she was jealous of Emily Thompson's talent. She deliberately sabotaged her art exhibition. Now, she has injured her hand again. Everyone thinks such a person should be sent to a mental hospital to prevent her from harming others. After scolding her, everyone went back to concern for Emily Thompson. Jacob Williams quickly walked to Emily Thompson's side. He exchanged a glance with Ethan Thompson. One helped her up. The other stood by to protect her. They hurriedly took Emily Thompson back to treat her wound. There's no place for me in the Thompson family anymore. I don't want to stay any longer. I'm exhausted inside, so I called a car. I plan to leave this troublesome place. While waiting for the car, a few relatives from the Thompson family suddenly appeared. They stopped me. They said angrily, "You think you can just walk away after hurting Emily?" They came up and grabbed my clothes. I struggled with all my might, but there were too many of them. I couldn't break free. In the midst of the chaos, Ethan Thompson suddenly appeared. He frowned. He hurriedly walked forward. Everyone in the Thompson family knew that Ethan Thompson adored his wife. As soon as they saw him come, they quickly let go and hurriedly left. Ethan Thompson took off his coat and draped it over me. His eyes were filled with compassion. He said, "Grace, I'm sorry. I was deliberately standing by Emily's side just now. You know it too. Those elders at home are hard to deal with. If I don't go along with them, your future days will be even harder. Plus, there is still no conclusive evidence regarding the plagiarism issue. I'll do it this way. It's also to reassure Emily." I coldly pushed him away. My tone was flat. No need to explain. I don't care. Now, who is Ethan Thompson really thinking about? It no longer matters to me. Ethan Thompson noticed my reaction. He was momentarily stunned. He felt a bit flustered. He asked me, "Grace, are you angry?" "I'm sorry. I really know I was wrong. You can punish me however you want." He reached out to support my shoulder. As he got closer, a scent of perfume often used by Emily Thompson wafted into my nose. I felt a wave of nausea. At that moment, the car stopped by the roadside. I got into the car without looking back. I drove away amidst his panic-stricken gaze. Perhaps it was because I felt guilty. Since then, Ethan Thompson became more attentive to me. He would get up early every day to make breakfast for me. No matter how busy or tired I am after work, I always make a special trip to my favorite flower shop. to buy myself a bouquet of flowers. I pretend to cooperate with him and acting as if everything is normal. But inside, I'm already counting down the time until I leave. That day was my birthday. It was also the last time Ethan Thompson hypnotized me. He was full of confidence, thinking that after this hypnosis, I would completely forget about Emily Thompson plagiarizing me. In fact, I had already seen through his plan, so I stopped following his instructions. The auxiliary medications he gave me, I threw them all in the trash. Therefore, this hypnosis was completely useless to me. I dressed up carefully and then went to the office. While stuck in traffic on the way, I received a live stream notification for Emily Thompson's art exhibition. Ethan Thompson spoke on stage as the curator. He said, "Emily's talent should be known to the whole world." A reporter asked him, "I heard your wife was an artist before. What do you think of her work?" Ethan Thompson replied with a smile. "She stopped painting after she got sick, but I love her, not because of her talent." I expressionlessly turned off the live stream. After arriving at the office, the staff took me into the operating room. I lay down. Soon, I will have a new identity. Everything about Grace will have nothing to do with me. As soon as the exhibition ended, Emily Thompson, as usual, invited everyone to KTV. Ethan Thompson politely declined with a smile. "Today is Grace's birthday. I have to go home and spend time with her." After hearing this, the friends immediately joked that Ethan Thompson is a husband who spoils his wife. They teased, "I heard you also bought a very precious sapphire necklace. If Grace found out, she would definitely be deeply moved. Dr. Ethan, your title of spoiling your wife is truly well-deserved." Emily Thompson, nearby, immediately reacted to this. Her expression instantly turned unpleasant. Ethan Thompson noticed her change in mood. He quietly approached her. He whispered to comfort her, "Today is the last hypnosis session. Once she forgets those things, she won't bother you anymore." Emily Thompson then smiled faintly. "I understand. I look forward to your good news." Ethan Thompson walked into the clinic with char siu rice. I entered the consultation room and found it completely empty. I asked the assistant, "Where did Grace go?" The assistant seemed a bit hesitant. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she handed me a voice recorder. "Grace brought this in the morning. She also said she would never come back." Ethan Thompson was taken aback for a moment. Then he smiled and said, "Today isn't April Fool's Day, is it? Quick, call Grace over. The char siu rice will get cold and won't taste good." The assistant stood still, with a serious expression. "Dr. Ethan, you'd better listen to the recording first." Ethan Thompson's smile suddenly froze. The atmosphere felt a bit off. He took the recording pen, pressed the play button. Right after that, Emily Thompson's domineering voice came from it. "That's right. I did plagiarize. What are you going to do about it? Your painting, your fiancé. These were supposed to belong to you. Now they all belong to me. I got everything, and you can only watch like a clown." Helpless, Ethan Thompson was stunned for a moment, doubting if he had heard it wrong. But it was indeed Emily Thompson's voice in the recording. The assistant frowned and said, "Dr. Ethan, I always felt something was off about what happened back then. Emily's works that have been exhibited in the past 2 years are all old stock. Could it be that she actually can't paint anymore? That's impossible." Ethan Thompson firmly denies it, but his hand holding the recorder trembles slightly. "Those paintings were clearly done by Emily. She promised me that in person." The assistant gently pressed her lips together, at a loss for words. Some things, outsiders often see things more clearly. A hint of hesitation crossed Ethan Thompson's eyes. He hesitated for a moment. Then he handed the recorder to the assistant. He said coldly, "Take it for inspection. See if there are any signs of tampering with the recording." On my birthday, I suddenly disappeared. Ethan Thompson searched everywhere. He turned over every possible place, yet he never found any trace of me. All my phone and social media accounts were deactivated. It was as if I had completely vanished from this world, leaving no traces behind. Emily Thompson walked into the clinic. She saw Ethan Thompson sitting in the dim room smoking. "The police department has accepted my missing persons case. Ethan Thompson has been indifferent to work during this time. He directly took a week off." Emily Thompson said, "Ethan, don't worry too much. Grace is just having a little emotional outburst with you. She'll be back before long." Ethan Thompson lifted his head. He looked at Emily Thompson through the drifting smoke. After a while, he asked her, "Those paintings, did you really paint them?" Emily Thompson was taken aback. Then she looked at Ethan in surprise. She asked, "Ethan, Are you doubting me? Those paintings were all created with great effort by me. At that time, she was causing a scene at my exhibition. I almost fell into depression. How can you start doubting me just because Grace had a little conflict with you? Emily Thompson's eyes were filled with tears. Her voice also trembled a bit. Ethan Thompson kept staring at her. He looked at her for quite a while. He looked for a long time. In the end, he still turned his gaze away, struggling to suppress the doubts in his heart. He told himself, that recording must be fake. Otherwise, he has helped Emily Thompson for so long. Wouldn't that be in vain? I'm sorry. Ethan Thompson rubbed his forehead. I believe you. It's just that Grace is missing. I'm anxious inside. She's an adult. What could happen? Emily Thompson let out a soft hum. You've been too indulgent with her. That's why she pulls this runaway stunt. Ethan Thompson frowned. Emily Thompson's words seemed to carry a sting. It made him feel somewhat uncomfortable. He didn't want to continue the conversation, so he found an excuse to let Emily Thompson leave first. The news of my disappearance quickly reached the Thompson family. They have always been somewhat dissatisfied with Ethan Thompson marrying me. Upon hearing that I left without a word, they immediately summoned him to the old house. They said directly, "We have long thought that Grace is unreliable. Why not take this opportunity to get a divorce, then find someone more suitable? Yeah, you both will want to have children in the future. What if they inherit her mental issues?" The elders were chattering away, but Ethan Thompson didn't hear a word. He recalled being the center of attention at the family dinner. It made him even more anxious. He found an excuse and left the living room. After just a few steps, his phone rang. It was his assistant calling. His eyes lit up. He quickly asked, "Do you have news about Grace?" The assistant on the other end paused for a moment. After a brief silence, he said in a heavy tone, "Dr. Ethan, the recording you asked me to authenticate, the results are in. It confirmed there are no signs of tampering." Ethan Thompson felt a loud ringing in his head. In an instant, everything went blank. He stood there in a daze. I can't believe things turned out this way. Those works that made Emily Thompson shine. It really was her who stole them. She's nothing but a downright thief. Dr. Ethan, you may have really misunderstood the lady. Her previous psychological evaluations showed normal results. It's you who keeps doubting these results. The lady suddenly left. It's likely because she felt very disappointed. The assistant's words hit hard, directly striking Ethan Thompson's heart. Just then, Emily Thompson walked over. She pretended to be tired and rubbed her waist, complaining. Grace, really, suddenly just disappeared. I searched for her until my legs were about to break. I even asked Jacob for help, but still, there was no news at all. Although we had conflicts before, after all, we've been best friends for so many years. There are still feelings there. Ethan, I'm really worried about her. Emily Thompson speaks sincerely, but her eyes reveal little sincerity. Ethan Thompson looks displeased. He can't help but speak up. Grace is missing. Aren't you supposed to be happy? Emily Thompson is taken aback. She asks, "What did you just say?" Ethan Thompson takes out a voice recorder. He plays the recording back to Emily Thompson in full. Emily Thompson's face gradually turns pale. She didn't see this coming at all. I secretly recorded what she said on the day of the family dinner. Emily Thompson hurriedly says, "Ethan, things are not as you think. Let me explain." She reaches out to grab the voice recorder, but Ethan Thompson dodges away. She misses her grab. Ethan Thompson looks at her coldly. His tone is icy. "I have already had someone investigate. The recording is authentic. It hasn't been tampered with. You plagiarized Grace's work, and you have been using me all along. These past 2 years, I've been fooled by you like a fool, going in circles, and I've continued to support you unconditionally. This is how you treat me." He recalls the daily indifference towards me after marriage, thinking of the false comfort time and again, remembering the hopeful look in my eyes when I gazed at him. Ethan Thompson felt a sharp pain in his heart. Actually, he had long sensed it back in school. Emily Thompson would always look at me with envy, and her probing questions about my work, along with those psychological assessments. These appeared repeatedly in his life, like a flashing warning light. It's just that he had been pretending not to see it. Ethan Thompson suddenly pushed Emily Thompson away. Emily Thompson fell to the ground, her face filled with fear. "Ethan, you have to believe me." Ethan Thompson looked at her coldly. His tone was firm. "You said this recording is fake. Then let's do a handwriting identification. There is always one painting in those that Grace painted herself. We just need to find one of them. That would prove the plagiarism is true." Emily Thompson's eyes suddenly narrowed. Most of the paintings she plagiarized were completed by copying, but the star map series cannot be imitated at all. She has no choice but to display the original works, thinking about the reputation and status she has painstakingly built over the years. It might all come crashing down because of the identification results. She felt a sudden turmoil in her heart. She struggled to stand up. She tightly grasped Ethan Thompson's arm. "Ethan, I know I was wrong. I admit that those paintings were all done by Grace. I didn't mean to plagiarize her work. In school, she always loved to show off in front of me. I couldn't help myself for a moment. That's why I made this mistake. Actually, I also have quite a talent, even without Grace's works. I could have reached this position through my own efforts, so don't tell anyone about this." "Okay." Ethan Thompson completely saw through Emily Thompson's true nature. He pushed her away forcefully. He said firmly, "Your so-called talent and effort, is it all just climbing up thanks to Grace's contributions? Emily Thompson, I'm really disappointed in you." After Ethan Thompson said this, he turned around and walked away briskly. "After leaving the United States, I adopted a new identity. Now I go by Vivian. I'm a wandering painter. I sleep until the sun is high in the sky every day. In the afternoon, I carry my easel to town to paint for people. Compared to the enviable wealthy days of the past, this free and easy life feels much more comfortable to me." On this day, I carried my easel to town again. A couple sat in front of me. They asked me to paint a portrait of them, watching the two of them snuggled together happily. I couldn't help but think of the days right after marrying Ethan Thompson. He is Emily Thompson's nominal cousin. He often followed us around during our school days. In my impression, he has always been a junior. Later, we met again in the psychiatric hospital. He had become mature and steady, wearing a white coat. Standing tall and straight, his every move exuded calmness. I never thought he would confess to me. At that time, I had also mentally prepared for a long time. Because of Emily Thompson, I didn't want to give him a chance, but in the end, I still succumbed to his sincerity. After getting married, he always accommodated everything about me. He always considered my feelings. I thought we would always be this happy, unexpectedly. In the end, I lost completely, in the midst of chaotic thoughts. I finally completed a painting. At the time of payment, the girl's phone suddenly popped up a news alert. She widened her eyes in shock and shouted, "Look quickly. The genius painter Emily Thompson is in trouble." I haven't followed Emily Thompson's news for a long time, suddenly hearing her name. "I'm a bit surprised," the girl said while pointing at the screen. These paintings were actually all stolen by her, and they were stolen from her former best friend. I really didn't expect her to do this. I didn't want to care about her matters anymore, but what that girl said made me a bit curious. After they left, I took out my phone. Sure enough, I saw Emily Thompson's name trending. Genius painter accused of plagiarism. Her former best friend's work has surprisingly become her stepping stone. Emily Thompson's genius image has collapsed. Her facade has finally been exposed. Seeing the online backlash against her, I understand. This large-scale public opinion assault must be manipulated by Ethan Thompson behind the scenes. I'm a bit surprised. In that encrypted folder, his feelings for Emily Thompson are deeply hidden, but it was very intense. I originally thought, even if he heard the recording, he would still keep it a secret for her. But now, these things no longer matter to me. Right now, I am no longer Grace. The past no longer has anything to do with me. I put my phone away and walked into the night under the moonlight. After the plagiarism incident was exposed, Emily Thompson became the laughingstock in the art world. The collectors who previously praised her works now hurried to distance themselves from her, demanding to return the paintings, and also asking her to compensate for the losses. The media reporters who once hailed her as an artistic genius have now changed their attitude and started to expose her negative news. Emily Thompson couldn't withstand such a blow. She locked herself in her room, refusing to eat. The Thompson family was worried she might harm herself, so they contacted Jacob Williams. I hope he can come and talk to her. I didn't expect Jacob Williams to not show up. He even postponed the wedding date. The Thompson family was at a loss. They had no choice but to call Ethan Thompson to ask him to talk to Emily Thompson. When Ethan Thompson received the call, he was busy sending messages to people he knew. Upon hearing the Thompson family's request, he said without hesitation, "She stole Grace's achievements and caused Grace to suffer so much. Now this is entirely self-inflicted. Can't blame anyone else." After saying that, he hung up the phone. He felt completely drained, slumped weakly in place. He slowly leaned back, his whole body slumped against the chair back. His eyes were vacant. He looked very confused. After a long while, he finally squeezed out a voice from his dry throat. "Grace, where on earth are you?" After knowing the truth, he immediately uploaded Emily Thompson's recording online. He also asked friends to help find someone, but several days have passed. There hasn't been any news. At this moment, the assistant hurried over. "Dr. Ethan, there's been an incident. Someone has leaked information online. They say you took advantage of your position to help Grace erase her memory. Now the dean has ordered. You are to be suspended. The person who exposed this is likely someone very close to Ethan Thompson. Not only have they documented his actions over the past 2 years in detail, but they also revealed that he and Emily Thompson are not actually related by blood. Those emotions, which were originally hidden and entangled like rotting vines, were suddenly exposed to the sunlight. In just a few days, Ethan Thompson and Emily Thompson became figures everyone avoided. Even Jacob Williams, who had always supported Emily Thompson, was implicated. Ethan Thompson didn't have time to care about those harsh words. He was running around the city all day, not letting go of any possible place to find me. It got dark. Ethan Thompson dragged his weary body back home. He pushed open the door. To his surprise, he found a woman sitting on the sofa. His eyes widened. He hurried over. "Grace." However, when he saw the woman's face clearly in the moonlight, the surprise vanished in an instant. Sitting on the sofa was Emily Thompson. She looked unwell. There were obvious dark circles under her eyes. Ethan Thompson still hadn't figured out what was happening. Emily Thompson pulled out a fruit knife from behind her. With red eyes, she lunged at him. "Emily Thompson, what are you doing?" Ethan Thompson reacted quickly. He grabbed her wrist with one hand. The knife in Emily Thompson's hand clattered to the floor. It sounded particularly harsh in the quiet room. Suddenly, she looked up and started to laugh. As she laughed, teardrops started to flow down her face. "Ethan Thompson, the things online were posted by you, right? You went to such lengths for Grace. You've ruined my reputation. Even Jacob Williams has left me. Is this what you've always called hoping for my happiness?" These days, Ethan Thompson has been avoiding Emily Thompson. Who would have thought Emily Thompson would suddenly sneak into his house? It just gave him a chance to vent. He grabbed Emily Thompson by the collar. "Furious," he said. "How did you promise me back then you told me Grace was dumped by Jacob Williams? She was heartbroken. That's why she went crazy and accused you of plagiarizing her work. What happened later, actually, you are the one with malicious intent." Emily Thompson's face turned red from the choke. Yet she laughed recklessly. "I'm jealous of her talent. But so what? Grace has been taking a lot of anti-anxiety medication these past 2 years. Her hands shake so much she can hardly hold a pen. Now she is. No matter how much talent she has, she can't showcase it." "Ha ha ha." Ethan Thompson's eyes were cold and stern. He pushed her forcefully against the wall. "Do you really think I would do as you say? Are you going to make her take those drugs? Emily Thompson, you're too naive. Don't forget, I'm a psychologist. I'm very familiar with the side effects of the medication. At first, I only agreed to help you erase her memories, but I never agreed to do anything harmful to her body." Emily Thompson heard this. The smile on her face suddenly froze. Her lips trembled slightly, but she couldn't say anything, thinking about how she had searched for so many days with no results. Ethan Thompson's gaze grew colder and colder. He quickly reached out his hand and tightly grabbed Emily Thompson's wrist like a vice. The veins on the back of his hand stood out prominently. "Since this hand has no talent whatsoever, it's better to get rid of it, so you won't steal others' hard work in the future." Emily Thompson suddenly felt afraid. She widened her eyes. She shook her head vigorously. "Ethan, don't do that. I'm your sister. You really want to see me become a useless person?" Hearing you call me sister, Ethan Thompson found it even more ironic. All these years, he had always buried this forbidden feeling deep in his heart, fearing it would affect Emily Thompson's reputation. But how did she treat him? Ethan Thompson's fingers tightened little by little. Emily Thompson's face turned pale from the pain. At that moment, the phone suddenly rang. Ethan Thompson was momentarily stunned. In the end, he still let go of Emily Thompson. He took out his phone and answered the call. As soon as he connected, an excited voice came from the other end of the line. "Dr. Ethan, there's news about the lady." When Ethan Thompson arrived in Chicago, I was about to go to the next city. The flight was delayed. I decided to paint one last picture. I just set up the easel. Someone came over from across the street. I looked up, and I happened to lock eyes with Ethan Thompson. I barely recognized him. He looked scruffy. His eyes were sunken. He had a pale complexion. He had lost quite a bit of weight. He seemed unsure if it was really me. His lips trembled slightly. I spoke first. People look like their photos. Upon hearing my voice, Ethan Thompson could no longer hold back. His voice choked with emotion. Grace, I finally found you. Come back home with me. Last night, his assistant called him to tell him that the person he arranged found me in Chicago. He immediately booked a flight and rushed over here overnight. But what he didn't know was, while I was resetting my identity, I also underwent an emotional detachment surgery arranged by the agency. After the surgery, I no longer have any feelings for Ethan Thompson. Now when I see him, it's like looking at a completely unfamiliar person. Ethan Thompson has also noticed something is off with me. As a psychologist, he is particularly sensitive to my emotional changes. Even when I used to act calm on the surface, the fluctuations in my eyes never escaped his observation. At this moment, he is staring into my eyes. He seems to want to find that old feeling of love, blame, or nostalgia, but he finds nothing. He is unwilling to accept it. He called out again. Grace, I replied calmly. Sir, you have the wrong person. My name is not Grace. I took out my ID and handed it to him. I said, my name is Vivian. Ethan Thompson saw the name on the ID. His hands trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with surprise. He stared intently at the name on the ID. Her gaze seemed to pierce through it. No, impossible, Grace. Don't joke around. Just then, a man walked up beside me. Vivian, did you see the message I sent you? The airport just notified me. The flight can take off as scheduled. Daniel is a wandering painter, just like me. We met here and decided to travel together. I nodded. I stood up and spoke to Ethan Thompson. Sorry, I can't continue painting today. My friend and I have to catch a flight. Daniel quickly helped me pack up the easel. We were joking around. Ethan Thompson suddenly grabbed my wrist. Grace, stop it. I know it's you. Come home with me. Daniel forcefully pushed him away. He said seriously, Sir, please be mindful of your behavior. In the end, Ethan Thompson was taken to the police station for causing a disturbance. He insisted that I am Grace. She is his wife of many years, until the police station presented my complete household registration and birth certificate, proving that my upbringing has no connection to Grace. Only then did Ethan Thompson have to face reality. I expressed my gratitude to the police. As I was leaving, I saw Ethan Thompson standing at the door. He looked sad. His eyes were filled with disappointment. 6 months later, I heard news about Ethan Thompson again. Emily Thompson was greatly affected mentally by the previous scandal. She publicly admitted that there was no blood relation between her and Ethan Thompson. She also revealed the vague text exchanges between the two over the years. Jacob Williams discovered that he had been deceived. Jacob Williams discovers that he has been deceived. In his anger, he uses his family's influence to place Emily Thompson under house arrest and secretly sends someone to injure Ethan Thompson's legs. Ethan Thompson didn't spare Jacob Williams either. He is the main person responsible for me being sent to the psychiatric hospital. In Ethan Thompson's eyes, Jacob Williams is equally guilty. Therefore, Ethan Thompson forced Jacob Williams to confess the betrayal from back then through hypnosis. This would forever nail him to the pillar of unforgivable shame. Daniel and I made many like-minded friends during our travels. We also created quite a few outstanding works. Although I still remember the past, there are no longer any waves in my heart. One day, while I was painting, my phone suddenly popped up a news alert. The headline read, Grace has been missing for 6 months. The genius painter may have fallen. After the news about Emily Thompson's plagiarism was exposed, everyone felt sorry for Grace. People said Grace had endured for so many years. Finally, the truth was revealed. But she was no longer here. No one was more unfortunate than her. Only I know the truth. Grace is actually doing quite well. This is me now. I have already become Vivian, a person who can paint freely without being held back by the past. Those past emotional entanglements have long disappeared without a trace with the change of identity. Daniel is sitting on the floor. A large map is spread out in front of him. It marks the places we've been to in the past 6 months. He asks me, Vivian, next month let's go here for the winter. What do you think? I sit down next to him. I say, you decide. Daniel is good at making plans. I enjoy spending time with him, not only because he is reliable, but also because he never pries into my past. Daniel has a gentle smile on his lips. His eyes are full of anticipation. He says, "How about we make a plan for a world trip to try to see all the beautiful sights in the world before retirement?" By the end of the month, Daniel and I set off for Los Angeles together. The worries from before are behind us. Vivian's wonderful life has already begun.